Thanks for tuning in to the 3D Tutor.
Okay, so guys, this is part 3 of the low poly character modeling tutorial. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue going down to the legs. So we're going to straight away jump in and go into our edit poly and simply going to be extruding down a little bit further down towards the kind of crotch area, the kind of pelvic area of our character. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the bottom polys and go ahead and extrude. Now obviously we don't extrude that far down. One thing you need to be aware of is that we are not going to extrude the leg straight from these polys just here. We're going to add an additional edge a little bit later, but for now let's just go a little further down and let's first of all pull this across so we've got a straight edge in the middle, and we're just going to be pulling out this vertice or the group of verts. Don't forget there's 2 there, or 3 should I say. So if we go there and click and drag over that area there and just drag it over to the side, that kind of gives us a bit of a template for that next area. Now with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back. I'm going to kind of ignore the bulge of his penis because it's quite large, as you can see from the reference images, and yeah, it just looks a little bit odd. So we're not going to actually model that just yet, because again we're just getting overall kind of structure, ignoring kind of, you know, little details, or should I say big details like that. And we're just going to pull this back area just back a little bit, because again this is going to be sort of roughly where the character's backside or his butt is going to be. So that's going to be a really quick kind of placing. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to place an edge sort of cutting right the way through this model, straight down his chest, down to his sort of torso, or the entire torso area should I say. So we're going to go into up to Graphite modeling tools, and we're going to click onto edit. Okay, so once again, to get onto the Graphite modeling tools, if you can't see anything down here and you can't see the edit tab, then what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are within edit poly. It doesn't really matter if you have anything selected or not, but once you're within there, you'll be able to see this like so. And once you go into there, go onto Swift Loop, and then as you hover over the model, it's going to give you a little guideline of where the edge is going to be placed. Now I'm going to place this fairly close to the center. I'm not going to place it sort of in between just here. I'm going to go right close to the middle of his chest to around about here. And don't forget, if you want your character's other side to be showing too, you can just hit this little show end result toggle button to show the other side as well. If you find that this is a little bit too close, so what I might do is I might just pull this further apart just slightly, just up to around about here. That's probably going to work a little better for me. Okay, so what this is going to allow us to do now, if I go back into vertices, I'm going to now just get rid of the Swift Loop option by hitting the right mouse button. I'm going to click and drag over the sort of pelvis area of my character, pull it down, and just bring this point a little further down to kind of meet in between the legs. So you want this kind of spacing in between the legs, and that's what these new polys, these new edges, this allows us to, you know, create this little area just between the legs. Because one thing we know for sure, we don't want the character to have just a point in the middle between his legs. Now be careful not to pull this vertices down too much, because it's going to look really odd for a male character especially. So we want it to be kind of bulging downwards a little bit, especially towards the front area of the character. Now next what we're going to do is we're going to be placing another loop. We're going to place one right down the middle just here. So we're going to go back into Swift Loop, and we're going to click in this area just here. Alright, so we've got an edge placed just there. I'm not going to shape the top area just yet. I'm going to do that later on. I'm going to focus solely on the legs for now. So everything's kind of looking good so far. We kind of got this crossed edges going on at the base as well. And what that's going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to round off the actual leg and the top of the thigh, which is what we're going to be extruding into in just a moment. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select the outer vertices on the left side, and we're going to drag those across. So you see how that's kind of rounded that off nicely. And what we're also going to do is we're just going to possibly just pull this one at the back, just further back slightly, pull this one back because, as we know, with the character, we want to kind of add some roundness to his to the back of his leg. So we're just going to pull this one back as well. Okay, now on the back of the character, when we have this kind of area, we've got this vertice and there's a bit of a pointed kind of area just here. If you do have that, just kind of drag it in to flatten it off a little bit, because what I'm going to have is my character's going to be clothed, so he's going to be wearing jeans or something similar. So what I'm going to do is just flatten that off, because again, even at the back of his spine, you know, we're not going to have that kind of bulging out like that because it just doesn't look right. So I'm going to flatten that off and maybe pull it up just to straighten that edge off a little bit. Now back to the bottom of the character, we're just going to go ahead and make sure that everything's lined up. Now one thing we know about, you know, the human form is that we need to make sure, right, that we round the legs off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this area apart a little bit. This is at the front of the legs, okay, and at the back we're going to pull it slightly apart as well, and in the middle we're just going to pull it closer together like so. Alright, so we kind of got a loose kind of round shape, and maybe with this one here I might pull it across just to bring it further forward a little bit. Again, it's just my efforts to kind of make this round, and if this is kind of sticking out a bit too much, I might just pull this back as well. Kind of ignore what's going on here for now, and try and kind of go with it, because let's just go ahead and move the whole lot back. In fact, let's just select all the verts on the back and let's pull those all back to sort of loosely where the character's backside is. So that's going to kind of work okay. So now that that's kind of round, we can go ahead and extrude down for the legs. So we're going to go ahead, want to make sure that you only select the polygons on these rounded areas just there. You don't want to select the ones down the middle, okay? You want to leave that spacing in between the character's legs. So what we're going to do now is we're going to extrude straight to the knee. Now similar to before, we're going to do it extremely low poly. We're going to go all the way down to the knee, and we're going to rotate this knee joint because it does straighten off. We're going to bring it in closer to where it should be. Look in both viewports, of course, because you need to make sure it's kind of aligned where it needs to be. So that's probably going to be a decent position, and then we're going to use the scale tool just to kind of scale it in, just to match as close as possible the thickness of that knee joint. So don't worry too much if for whatever reason, you know, it's not looking too good. What I need to emphasize is that all that you're looking for right now is to match it in position and match it in the width and the length of this segment. So you can see how it kind of matches up quite nicely there. Again, I always tend to use my trick where I go onto the scale tool, and while that area is selected, if I scale down towards that, you see how it flattens off. If I go the opposite way, it's going to expand, but if I scale down, simply using the axes just here, whoopsie daisies, that's going to flatten that off nicely. Okay, so now we've got a really kind of flat area which is going to sort of lead into the calf quite nicely. So I'm going to go into my poly select, make sure those base polys are still selected, and I'm just going to be extruding down all the way down to the kind of ankle area. So I'm going to ignore the fact that obviously his calves are huge, and I'm going to simply just scale these across like so, and in this viewport I'm going to scale it, and this is kind of me being rough because I haven't exactly lined it up properly yet, but you can kind of see what's happening. That's going to go there, and you know, you've got very, very slim legs in this character right now. And again, you know, this is just the early stage, so do not worry, do not be afraid that it looks odd and weird. This is kind of like the building blocks for the next stage. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shape the legs a little more. We're going to add some edges, and we're going to be shaping the thigh as well as the calf as well. So we're going to go onto Swift Loop just because it's the quickest way that I personally feel that we can add edges. I'm going to place one kind of fairly close to the kind of pelvis area. I'm going to place one loosely halfway down this kind of muscle just here. You can kind of see it there. I'm going to place it maybe like a 2/3 of the way up the actual thigh, and one maybe here. Okay, I'm going to also go with, let's go with one just around about here, one maybe here, one here at the middle of the calf, and one at the base of the calf as well. So we're adding quite a few edges here, but this is just going to help us to shape the leg, just to kind of match up with the characters. So I'm going to go ahead and shape this, and like this male figure's muscles are quite defined, as you've probably already noticed, and we just need to be careful because we don't want them to look too large, especially when it comes to the calf, because it will look extremely odd if we try and match that up 100%. So I'm going to go ahead in this side view and make sure the areas that I've just lined up, I'm just going to make sure they're also lined up in this viewport, and that's looking fairly good. So I'm just going to pull this out slightly just there, and maybe pull this one in. There we go. So that's kind of added a bit of thickness to the upper leg, and the next step for us is what am I looking at here? I'm looking at the calf. Now, one thing we know about a calf, and any player, any character, any human being's calf, it's fairly slim at the front, where you kind of got this bony area, and you can see even in the reference images that we've got these lines on the side which represent the bone on the front of the calf. So what we might do at this stage is just kind of thin this area at, because right now if we look from below, it's fairly flat in the middle anyway. So just to kind of help us a little bit in the future, we're just going to select some of these areas just here by holding control, and we're going to move this across. Just simply drag it across to the left, and maybe pull it down backwards a little bit as well. Okay, so that's a little rounder now, it's a lot better. So now that we've got that area sorted, we know that we need to align the back of the leg to match the calf shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially select kind of this area just here, ensuring that I've only got the side selected. We could even go with the polygon select and simply select this poly just here, and then drag it out to the right hand side. Okay, so you see what I've done there. I can even rotate that polygon just to make it kind of match a little more with the shape. Once again, do not fret, this is just to get the overall shape. And I'm going to go on the opposite side, and I'm going to select the opposite poly, and I'm just going to move that across again, just to match as close as I can with the reference. Now, of course, it looks odd at this stage because his calves are absolutely humongous, so I'm just going to tone them down because I don't think they look right for my character anyway. It just doesn't look right, they're just too big. So I'm just going to tone that down a little bit, and then I'm going to be lining them up from the back. Okay, so currently we only had them lined up from one axis, so we're going to go in from the left side as well and pull this all the way back, and even go into vertex and just pull this area here just back a little bit as well. Again, I'm just toning it down, I'm dragging them a little further in than what the reference actually suggests. So I'm going to pull this area up as well, and again, I do think that even though it looks really odd at this stage, once we kind of get all the different areas smoothed, hopefully it should just all kind of make sense, and that's the hope. That is the hope. So what we've got now is we've got that kind of calf area modeled. We've got like the thigh area modeled as well, which is maybe just looking a little bit skinny, so I'm just going to add a bit of thickness to it, just pull it out a little further, and even to this entire kind of hip area, and on the inside too. Let's just pull that across slightly, and pull this one across too. And in this view, we could probably just grab the entire chunk on the back and pull it back as well. Alright, so that's kind of looking a little better. Let's quickly just add a smoothing group just to make sure that it's looking okay. So we're going to go into Polygon. We're going to select the new segments that we've just added. So we're going to select the entire area. It doesn't matter if you over select on the stomach area of the character. We're going to then deselect the base of the kind of shin area, because we don't want that to be as part of the smoothing group because it's not the character's skin. So I'm going to then scroll down, and I'm going to go and find, if I can find it, it's just collapsed for me, so Polygon Smoothing Groups, and then I'm going to clear all and then hit number 32. So it's all going to be on the same smoothing group as the rest of the body. And if I press F4 and go in my create tab, let's ignore the kind of point in the middle of his chest because we are going to fix that later. But you can kind of see, with his legs, we kind of got the calf muscle defined and we've got, you know, the kind of shin coming through, and that's looking quite good. I'm quite pleased with that. I found that when I was rotating around, the angle between the calf and sort of the bottom area of the leg was just a little bit too sharp, so I'm just going to go ahead and just sort of tweak it slightly just to soften the angles a little bit, because right now they're a little bit harsh. So that's kind of just going to help with the transition between the angles from the calf all the way down to the just above the ankle area. So now we've got that done, we're going to work on the knee. Now there is a lot more tweaking that we have to do, so we'll kind of come back to that later. So just this area around about here inside the leg we need to tweak quite a bit because it's kind of very flat, but we'll get to that later. And these edges just here are a little bit close, so in fact let me just fix this now. I'm just going to go ahead and select just these vertices along this part of the character. I'm going to pull them back. Okay, so what I'm looking to do is I'm just trying to space them out a little better so they're not all so huddled up towards the front. Alright, so just to kind of show what I did there, this is them originally, and what I've done now is I've just kind of pulled them back slightly. Now we're going to work on the knee area, because obviously the character has a knee. Whether he's going to wear jeans or wear any kind of clothing, you probably want to apply some definition on the knee area. It's always a good thing to do. Just adds sort of some weights to the character's legs, because otherwise you kind of run the risk of them looking just not realistic and kind of just almost like just a flat sort of panel on the front, and we don't want that. We want to have something bulging out. We want the knees to kind of pop out just slightly. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select this edge that runs down the middle. Okay, so this is the one that runs through the middle of the knee. So if I just look here, you can see how that runs through around about the middle of the knee, or maybe the next one up. In fact, I've got the wrong one, so let's go with this one. It's a little bit awkward simply because the calf of the character kind of ends a little bit earlier in this view, but in this view here you can see it kind of goes all the way up to here. So you want to make sure you get the correct edge. You want to look in that front view and in the side view, and you want the edge that is in the middle of the knee. Now once you get that one, you want to go to loop. Okay, so you could have also held shift, click the next one, and then it would select the entire loop. And then we're going to chamfer this. We're going to go down to chamfer. We're going to click onto the little button next to chamfer to give us these options. And we want to kind of expand this so it's, you know, loosely the same kind of height as the main knee area. Now I know the knee is quite large in this character, so I'm going to just go for this sort of main area just here. And I'm going to be adding another extra segment in there as well. Okay, so I've just added one more segment, so there's 2 segments, and now what we'll have is something like this. And what we can do now is we can actually shape this so it's kind of rounded for the sort of knee area. So I'm going to lift this up slightly, I'm going to pull this one down, and let's go ahead and grab the 2 on the outside, pull them across a little bit. Now I know this is going to look just very slightly odd at this stage, but don't worry, like I keep saying, this is just creating that knee shape, and you'll see it in just a moment when I complete the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and straighten that. I'm going to straighten this one. Just pull this one in a little bit more. So you see that's a little bit better now. It's a bit more equal. Now I'm going to be selecting the polygons on the front of that kneecap, and I'm going to simply bevel them. So I'm going to go to bevel. That's obviously way too far, so I'm going to drag that back considerably, and also reduce the outline, which is just too much. So I'm going to go to roughly about there, but I'm going to pull this back slightly, so to around about here, and press the tick. So again, it's going to look a little bit odd, but you have to trust me here. What we want to do is we want to sort of round off the front of the knee. So I'm going to go onto vertice. I'm going to select the vert in the middle where we've kind of got this cross, and I'm just going to pull that forward. So as you can see from all angles now, it's just kind of making the knee curve out, which is obviously the way knees should be. And we're going to go and ensure that, again, just over select this entire area. It doesn't really matter. We can then go to clear all and hit number 32, and they are now on that smoothing group. So if I press F4, you can see that we've got a bit of definition there on the knee. Now it looks a little bit odd at this stage, but we can soften that later. So if we go ahead and add jeans to this character, we can actually soften that up very nicely just by kind of pulling up, for instance, if we wanted to drag the two edges on the front just here, we can then push those forward. So you know, that would kind of lose the emphasis on the top of the knee, but then you'd gain some on the bottom. So similar to if you're wearing jeans, it kind of hangs off, it kind of sits on the top of the knee, but at the bottom you might have a bit of definition where the kind of jeans just slightly sort of tuck in below. Okay, so you want that, you want this definition for the knee, very, very important. Right, so the next step will be in the next episode, when I go ahead and start manipulating the chest area, just to start flattening out the chest, because we actually have just a few edges now, don't we? We've added 2 segments down the chest area, down the sort of torso of the character, and they're running all the way down the back as well. So we've got a lot more edges there to work with, and we can start shaping this more like our, you know, male masculine figure. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, guys. Apologies if it's been a little bit confusing, but just stick with it. Go back to any part that you found confusing. If you have any questions, please do ask below in the comments section. I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. But once again, guys, I do hope you enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for the next one. I'll catch you next time.